friends, we are in Chicago, actually Evanston to be exact, at the very first Peak Performance Horn Symposium set up here at the Boen School of Music by Gail Williams, our wonderful Gail Williams. And she and Jonathan Boen are the two teachers here at the, what is it called, the Boen School of Music, part
Yes.
of the Northwestern.
Yes.
And you guys have set up an amazing, amazing weekend for everybody. We would love to have been live on the Horn Hangouts, but unfortunately we couldn't get our act together and get Tim or Jakob over to do it. But we're doing a different version today. We're taking questions from everyone in the room, and there are a lot of them. And they've got great questions. This is how we've decided to do it. Look at all those. So we just thought, oh, we lost one. That's probably the best one. We just thought we'd go with the flow, do a little horn hangout, ask you your questions. First of all, I have a couple of questions for you. Gail, how did this all happen?
Well, this is the first year that this building has been open, and the Dean of Music wanted some sort of festival. And so, after some thought, I thought, this is something I've always wanted to do, is show that there's more than one side of having a good horn symposium. You can have all kinds of horn players and play, or you can have some really good lectures. So I decided to do that.
Just to explain to the people watching at home, you haven't just had horn masterclasses. You both done horn masterclass. I did as well. You've had meditation, Alexander technique, a sports psychologist came in, amazing.
Coach.
And food. I'm not talking about the cake.
Doctor.
Not talking about the cake last night.
No, the cake is, we won't tell anybody.
We won't tell anybody. So, are these all friends of yours? Are these people you...
There are colleagues of ours from Northwestern. The phrasing person that came in is a bassoon professor. The sports coach is a tennis coach from here, and she's had an extremely, very successful record. And the doctor is John's doctor, personal doctor. And the Alexander teacher is here at Northwestern, and David Brockett I met while I was playing in Cleveland. And he does meditation and many other things in his life.
John, what did you think when Gail came and said she wanted to do all this?
I thought it was fantastic. I mean, it really, as she mentioned, it's unusual to have this mix of ingredients in a presentation. And for those of us who've played a long time, you realize how important, how essential that is. When you're young, you can really abuse yourself and still do well in a number of ways. But as you get older, if you don't take care of yourself, something like your horn playing is one of the first things to go.
Yeah, I totally agree. I said that today in the masterclass. I wish someone had even just told me when I was young to stretch out my arms after playing, just even to get this little stretch here. So you're all very, very lucky. So today, because we don't have an online audience, we actually, I really like this even better. We've got Gail's horn bell, and she's told me to be careful with it, not drop it, which I won't. So, and we have fantastic questions here, which I basically, let's forget the chit chat. I'm just going to fire them at you, and some of them are mine as well. I see. So let's just go for it. What do you think? What qualities make a great horn teacher, John? Short and snappy. What would you say?
You have to understand your student. A good teacher has to meet the student halfway, and a good student has to meet the teacher halfway. If that happens, you can have a great relationship. If that doesn't happen, it's going to be a short experience.
Here. Gail, question from Brianna. How do you know when to stop practicing? Good question.
Well, stopping before you think you have to stop is something we all need to know. And shorter is better than longer. So you never ever feel the fatigue, so you can build strength upon that.
What method do you have to reach your peak performance by the time of a recital or an audition? For example, not peaking too early. Erica, New Jersey, asked that question. Ooh, that's something you learn over the years, I guess. This pacing is a very important thing. What would you say about that?
It is trial and error, really. You have to understand how you react and pace yourself. It's not like a test where you can stay up all night cramming, for sure.
Yeah, no, that's right. Sometimes you've got to know when to leave it alone.
Yes.
Well, I also think you can work backwards. If this is your recital, let's say on Saturday, maybe your last heavy day should be Wednesday. Just like in preparing for a marathon or something like that. you taper. And so you know that this is where you are here, and then you start coming down.
That takes a lot of courage to not play too much the day before
you
audition.
you kind of have to. Yeah. You can do all the mental work you want to, and you can have lots of flexibility, and drink and eat properly, and those are the things that are going to help you have a success.
I also think if you want to practice 3 hours a day, and you divide the ratio between actually practicing and thinking about the music, you can change that ratio as you get closer to the performance, and maybe you start off with an 80-20 mix, and by the time you get the day before, you're maybe 20% playing and 80% thinking about what you want to do, and that allows you to stay invested in it, but not
visualizing is good for those times as well. But before my audition at the Berlin Phil, I'd even visualized what I was going to wear, which may sound silly, but it was just something less, one thing less I didn't have to worry about. I knew, okay, that's what you're wearing that day you're going on. I knew that a few days in advance. It is quite important to look decent in auditions. Yes. We get that all the time. People come for academy auditions, things, and their butts are hanging out of their trousers, and they're girls with really tight dresses on or tops on. They take a breath, and my colleagues go, It's normal. It's normal. Try and look nice. You don't want to look too nerdy, but try and look like you've made a little bit of an effort. Don't you think? That's something.
You would never go to an interview down in a very important marketing firm with kind of sloppy clothes on. So why do musicians think they can get away with it?
Courtney Reese, Southport, North Carolina, where Stephanie Jilski comes from. How much does singing influence your horn playing? A lot.
I mean, I've been playing opera for over 30 years. It is my horn playing. Yeah.
Yeah. Not only the phrasing, but also the physicality of it. They do things a little bit differently. I always like to watch the singers, the great singers that come on stage, and I watch them from behind. You rarely see a lot of back action going on, or the going in like this. I'm always quite amazed at that. Why is that, Gail? Where do they store it all?
Well, the lungs expand this way. They don't expand in one spot. And everything has to grow. I mean, one of my best breathing classes was standing backstage at Lyric during the first run of the ring cycle. And I'm not sure who was one of the big giants in Gutter Demrung. And I was just watching him, and he had this great big huge leather coat on. And he would take a breath in, it would go up, and it would come back down while I was singing. And he'd take another breath in, went about 6 inches off the ground. It's like, he's just going, and it's just all going.
I don't always, I've noticed I don't always see that from the back. You see it at the front, you see it going in, but their backs, I don't know, I didn't tend to see that so much. With you, I never forget the first time I played with Chicago Symphony as a young thing, and watching Charlie Vernon expand and then go back down. He's like a double his size. That helped me a lot. I wouldn't have got my job in the Berlin Phil, I don't think, if I hadn't had this visit to Chicago and learned about all that. I took it down a step because I was splitting lots of notes. It's always a thing. You learn something new, it works great, and then you do that non-stop, and then you realize, okay, maybe it's not perfect for me, but anyway, so thank you. Singing really does help. And she also asked, what sort of activities do you do outside of horn playing, physical and mental? Well, you do masses of sports.
Well, yeah, because I love it. Yeah. So I want to be outside. I'm counting the days so I can be out in the mountains and hike and bike and camp. Get outside and enjoy take your earbuds out of your ears.
That's one thing.
And listen to the birds.
I agree. Jogging, I cannot jog with earbuds in.
I don't understand it. You're all going to be deaf. we may be deaf because we sat in front of timpani and trumpets and trombones, but you're going to be deaf because you're wearing those things in your ears. That's a mother talking.
I've done a lot of gardening in my life. My father grew vegetables, my mother grew flowers, and starting at 4 years old, I helped my dad, I helped my mom, so of course when I grew up, I grew everything. And so that's
your therapy.
Been very connected, yeah.
That's wonderful, getting your hands dirty, that's fantastic. I've got a roof garden in Berlin, and that's, just go out there and just I can never sit down there though, I'm always picking something off. That's good therapy. You got to find stuff outside the practice room that you love doing. Salsa dancing. I don't do it too much anymore, but that really sort of got me out, got me in touch with feeling my body and everything. I've got little writing here, but I like the question. Andrew Slembarski from Milwaukee. When playing with horn players from all over the world, do you find that you need to change the way you play at times? If so, how? I'll just start off answering that one because Gail and I played together in the, what do we call it? The World Orchestra for Peace. And that was a perfect example of this. You probably play in youth orchestras. We played in the European Community Youth Orchestra, which has finally been saved, I think. Thank goodness for that. And that is the best thing about it, playing with people that, you know, even Gail and I, we play totally differently, but to sit next to her, that's your job as a second horn, is to play with the first horn player. And that's just really exciting. How you change, you can't change your playing, but you can use your hand to change the sound. You can change your attacks to make them more like who you're sitting next to. Yeah, I don't know, what sort of tips would you have for someone to adjusting sound? It's not only people from different countries, it's also, everybody plays different.
I think you still have to play your game. If you fall off your game, you're going to lose. There'll be less possibilities to blend. And just try to play with a beautiful approach. Be sensitive.
Gail, you've played first horn most of your life, so we've always adjusted to you with pleasure. I hasten to add.
Well, not always. In the World Orchestra, I would play third or first.
That's true. You did.
And it's fun having a challenge to change your sound and to listen. I mean, that's what your ears are there for. Not just to do my thing, but to join the forces, you know, and see if you can make color changes. And that makes it interesting.
Yeah. That's why we play the horn, because we can do that so much better than anybody else.
I mean, you wear different hats. So if you're playing with a brass section, you play with different articulations, and all of a sudden you're playing with woodwind section, and then you're playing with string section. So you get an opportunity, and that's much more challenging that way.
Great question from Paul from Chicago. If you only had an hour to practice every day, what percentage of your time would you devote to warm-ups and fundamentals versus preparing etudes and solos? Great question. You want to go first on that, John?
Well, if I had an hour to practice and that was it, I was preparing for a show at night, I would start at the basic. I always feel every day when I pick up my horn, I don't assume I know how to play it. I would go over the very basic issues of getting the air to move freely into the horn, creating a beautiful sound, and then I would expand from there. And some days that might be faster than others, but I wouldn't go past the basic foundation before I started building the second floor, because that would just crashing down. So that's a day-to-day thing for me, but I'd always start in the basement and then put the first floor on and the second floor on.
And if you don't have much time, Gail, you know, because some people have proper jobs, what would you recommend for because there's so many great amateur players out there as well. I find they work often. I have a bad conscience sometimes when I see how hard they work, and then do a full-time job on the top of that.
Well, I admire anybody that wants to continue playing the horn because they must really love it. And I think that finding their strengths and keeping the strengths getting stronger, and not just work on the weak, but get your stronger aspects and keep that stronger, because a weak will come along. So if you can always think about playing something, basics, I think we have to do our daily duties. And making those stronger will make the music stronger. But I think what's absolutely terribly important for everybody in this room, at the end of the day, you play something you love.
Yeah.
Play a melody, play whatever you want to play, but it's got to be something fun. Instead of saying, ugh, and putting away. That's not the way you want to end every day.
Yeah, even if you have a short amount of time. And sometimes, if you only have a short amount of time, once or twice you could forget the warm-up and just get in there and play something nice, because there's going to be days when you're in a traffic jam and you turn up at 1 minute to 10 and you have to go on stage and play anyway.
Right.
So that's worth, you know, if you do the same thing every day, we get bored of it. So mix it up a little bit, spice it up a little bit. Marina Crickler, Marina, is that right? From Calgary or Boston, make up your mind. Any tips on inspiring building confidence after a series of unsuccessful auditions? That's a tough one. Taking knocks in our business it's not nice, you know, but that's got to keep on believing in yourself. It's if you have to believe in yourself, otherwise you're not going to be able to sell what you do. And if you've played badly, then it's important to go back, reflect on that, say, okay, how can I prepare that? The worst thing to do is to go, God, you were terrible, and bash, and that's just going to put you in a bad space for the next time. So you've also got to be you've got to be honest, but you've got to be nice. You can be nice, but also honest. You know, it's a fine line to really look at what you could have done better, rather than just forget about it. Be honest like that, but also just believe that your time will come. You never give up that belief.
That's really important. I had a wonderful experience because I played in lyric opera before John got there. And the oboe player in the opera kept saying to me, how'd it go? Well, I got semis and finals, and it's just not meant to be. You're not supposed to be there yet. So that's important, just to go, okay, you know, the main thing is, were you prepared for every audition? And I can say that there's some people out in the audience that I know are taking some auditions that, are they totally prepared? And that's, if you're not totally prepared, then maybe you won't have the right mindset. But I think that's one way of looking at it. I also have to say this, that my first professional audition, the 3 losers went out and we had a really nice dinner party. We already spent the money, so we had a nice dinner in Denver.
Yeah, that's nice.
And learn from what you did. You learn from the experience, but what did you enjoy? So you have to enjoy it too.
Yeah, it's hard to enjoy auditions, but you can get positive stuff out of it.
I'll just add one more thing is, get away from excerpts. You know, make sure that you just don't stay in excerpt land and go out and play a mini recital somewhere so you start connecting to something that's longer than an 8-bar phrase.
It's great advice. That's really great advice. You're right, we get very much into our
running sprints.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. Although I must say excerpts are usually what let people down in auditions, because they played great concertos and they come along and their rhythm's wrong. Or you can tell that they don't know the piece. You know, that happens rarely in an audition for the orchestra, because my orchestra people usually have experience of playing orchestras before they apply. But in the academy auditions, you know, we have sometimes 50 horn players, and you can hear that all they've done is learned it out of a book. They've never heard Beethoven 9. They don't know that when you play that movement that there's woodwind players in there, and the jury can always hear that. Always. You have to know your music, you have to know everything. So there's a lot of stuff to keep you going and if you spent too much time on one thing and you realize that didn't go so well in the audition, then concentrate on another area and what went wrong, but be nice to yourself too. We'll do a couple of, I like this one. There's Aaron again. Oh, well, okay. Aaron, how do you handle the yips? Zips? Yippies?
Yips.
Yips? Is that we call them the pearlies, the scaredy cats? Those moments where you just think, wow. Getting nervous. John, a couple of good tips on that?
Preparation, it usually calms me down. If you can have I find some quiet time. The worst thing for me is getting stuck in traffic, showing up, and not having time to kind of get in the zone. And sometimes you can't control that, and that's where some quick meditation ideas really help. But preparation and just trying to squeeze in a little time for yourself seems to be the best for me.
That's important. Horn players are a very gregarious bunch. We like to be in packs and we like to be together. And laughter is also, I find, a good weapon against getting nervous. But we do need our quiet space.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on vibrato and solo, she asks as well.
I think it's personal taste. I think, I've been in situations where conductors will ask me to use vibrato, and others will say, don't use it. And so I think it's a good skill to have to be able to turn on and off.
Yeah.
And I think if you're taking an audition, particularly around in our country, you need to be able to find the off switch if someone asks you to. I've had some experiences where people cannot turn it off, and then that's kind of a warning system, a warning sign. So it has to be an optional enhancement.
Yeah. I like this. What is the instrumentalist or singer whose musicianship you most admire, Gail?
Food.
They're hard. It's like asking which is your favorite child. But
Elena Kotrubis.
pardon?
He even looks at me. She was one of, when I was in lyric opera many, many, many moons ago, I had not had any experience in playing. And this was my first job, and Elena Kotrubis was a soprano that I just fell in love with. I loved her voice, I loved her musicianship, and luckily she sang a lot at lyric at the time. But to hear singers, you just can't choose one. Goodness gracious.
It's hard.
I mean, of course, looking at horn players, I'd say, I mean, my go-to guy is Dennis Brain. I mean, that was my first person I heard. When I was a senior in high school, my brother brought home The Art of Dennis Brain #1, because I had decided at that point to go into music, and he said, you might want to listen to this. I went, oh, is that what the horn's supposed to sound like?
John, do you have a particular person, or is it
Well, I mean, I remember when I was really young, the first time I heard Pavarotti sing, it was when I was in the pit, and I just was so
you
electric.
played live with him?
And many times, and it was so electric. It's one thing to listen to a recording, but it's another thing to be with it.
And to hear all that stuff in their voices and these huge moments.
And when I was very young, I went to a music camp out in California, and it was Herman Bauman's first trip over here. And I remember having a master class on a stage about like this. I was working on the Cherubini Sonata, and he kept calling it the etude, the etude. He didn't really like the
Take the etude,
yeah.
the etude.
And his English was not present, yeah. And so he would just play, and the sound exploded out of his horn, and that was like a real light bulb moment for me. So that was very, very,
Another nice question. Do you have a mantra or any keywords that you use to summarize playing the horn? Mine would be blow. Yours too, huh?
I think sing.
Sing.
Yeah,
Sing
he wins. Sing and blow.
Wind and song.
Wind and song. In Chicago, that is very, very apt. You know, you guys, there's so many really good ones in here. Dana from Wisconsin. Why did I choose Yeju from Taiwan? Because of the sound. I was told to play the harp or the clarinet and the oboe. I didn't want to do all that. I was told the horn was for boys. That interests me. I thought, okay, I'll have a go. I picked up the horn. I just love the sound of it. And I'm sure that's probably the same with you guys. It's just the sound is everything.
Actually, mine's a little different. My grandfather said, you should be in the band.
Oh.
I said, okay. So I went down to the band office, and I looked at the poster of the instruments and how they looked. And I liked the shape of the horn. I joined the band, and they gave me an E-flat alto marching horn. So, yeah, so hey, this doesn't match.
I wanted to play the flute, and when they got around to W in the 5th grade, they were all gone. And my mother said she had a rule that we couldn't play the same instrument, and where I came from, there's only a few instruments. And luckily, my father played the sousaphone, and my mother was a percussionist, and a brother played clarinet, and a brother that played trumpet. And I'm left-handed, so Mom said, play the horn. That's not fair, it doesn't fit on the bus.
I'd say this is going to be the last one. Tori has written, she said, thank you for coming to Peak Performance. You're welcome, I'm very happy. Another late start on the horn. Started at 16, she tries to play and teach professionally. How was I able to become a part of the horn community as quickly as I did, and where did I find that sense of community without having other people in your year at school? So obviously that's where are you, Tori? That struck a nerve, what I said about being the only one in my year at school. I was surrounded by, that was at the college. When I was at school, I was the only one playing the whole school. They thought I was just weird. But it was something I loved, and I think you have to stick to your guns. If you love something, don't let peer pressure get in the way, and don't let, if that's what you love, that's what you love. And the best thing to do, what saved me at school, was finding a youth orchestra, or finding a community orchestra if you're older than school. If you're a professional, obviously you're with people that understand you, but it's often this feeling of isolation when we're studying, and we spend a lot of time on our own in practice rooms. If I had had the Horn Hangouts when I was younger. It's just this feeling of feeling connected and feeling part of a community. It's important. We need that these days. We need to feel like there's, we're not alone out there. We're on our own on stage. You have to come up with the goods by yourself. But I think we can also take strength and courage in knowing that other people out there, even, amazing horn players, go through the same sort of stuff that you guys go through. And just don't give up. There's a lot of good people out there, a lot of people to help build that community. We have this amazing horn community, online and offline. As I see in the room, it's fantastic to come here and meet the faces who are online at the Horn Hangouts. And it's really great. And I would just say, yeah, we're a pretty cool community, us horn community. What do you think? So thank you for that. Thank you for all these questions. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for watching our Horn Hangout. And I would say let's get outside and play some music. What do you say? Yeah?
Thank you.